Welcome to the Undisputed Podcast. I'm your host, Joy Taylor. On today's show, what does the latest ruling in Ezekiel Elliott's suspension case mean for the Cowboys? Plus reaction to all of the biggest trades around the NFL. And is it the right move for Lonzo Ball to take accountability when the Lakers lose? Skip, Shannon, let's get to it. Happy Halloween. Let's start with the big Ezekiel Elliott news. His request for an injunction was denied last night by a district court judge, meaning Elliott's 6-game suspension is back on. However, the judge has given the NFL and Players Association 24 hours to appeal. If the appeal is not granted, Elliott's suspension will start Sunday against the Chiefs. The Cowboys are currently 4-3. Shannon, how will this play out?
It's going to play out like I said it would play out all along.
Oh, please. That's not true.
Ezekiel Elliott is going to miss 6 games.
You said he was going to miss the first 6 games.
No,
yes,
see,
you did.
You dealt with the semantics. I said when they come down to
We're 8 games in. Go ahead.
I said he's going to be suspended, be it early, middle, or late, but he's serving those 6 games. Skip wanted to deal with semantics. Oh, he's going to play the whole.
It happened. He hasn't been suspended for 1 game so far, and I don't think he's going to be suspended for the next game.
I disagree. And if you read what this judge said, and she wrote very, very carefully. How you pronounce it? Fayala? Fayla. She referenced a lot about the Tom Brady situation. She referenced a lot about Article 46. And she said in this situation, she referred back to Judge Parker, who ruled in the Tom Brady's case. However reason that Brady enjoy a right to cross-examination of Pash, such right must be expressed in the CBA. Joy, you know who my favorite, the one thing I wanted to be more than a football player was a judge. And I told you, Judge Judy, right here, Skip, if it's not in Article 46, if it doesn't say that Zeke's team gets to cross-examine alleged victim, if it doesn't say it gets to cross-examine the arbiter, which is Roger Goodell, you're asking for something that you knew wasn't in there when you signed the agreement in 2011. She says, don't come in here and ask me to undo a bad deal that was bad at the time that you signed it, and you still signed it anyway. They like to use in judge terms and in law terms, they like to use deference. They give great deference. CBA, what is CBA short for, Skip? Collective Bargained Agreement. Joy, you and I agreed that I was going to sell you this car for $5,000. I told you it was a lemon, didn't have the engine in it when you bought it. Now you buy it and say, well, Shannon, it doesn't have an engine. I told you it was a lemon, Joy. I told you it didn't have an engine.
What have you been campaigning for months on this show? What have you been campaigning for?
Don't do that, Skip.
A reform of our criminal justice system as it applies to black people in the United States of America. What is happening right here, right now?
What do you mean?
Railroad. It's an all-time railroad.
Skip, but here's the thing. Under the system, what we're campaigning for is that the laws that are being enforced, they agreed to these laws in 2011. And so basically what they're trying to do, because here's the thing, Skip, they're not arguing whether or not Zeke did it or not. They're arguing with the process. And every judge at every turn, too, said it was fair because you collective bargained it into 2011. And it also said they do not have to put any more weight in Kia Roberts' testimony or anybody's testimony more than the other. We give the judge, the arbiter, great deference. Now, she did say, if this was some outlandish judgment that you suspended him 6 games without a hearing, then I would probably have a problem with that. She said, but he followed everything by the book. He gave you your day. He doesn't have to, CBA says he doesn't have to afford you the ability to cross the alleged victim. It doesn't afford you the ability to cross-examine him. So under those and what you agreed to, Skip, get out my courtroom. I know you upset about it.
Sound like a cowboy hater.
No, Skip.
That's what it sounds like. And I get a lot of people out there are cowboy haters.
You trying to paint me. You trying to paint me as that. But I told you what was going to hurt more. I say soon as Zeke start to eat, it's going to hurt really bad because he went for 140. Now he went for 150. And he's starting to look like that old Zeke Elliott that we saw last year. That old racehorse that ran long and hard last year. It's over 1,600 yards. Led the league in rushing. All pro. Pro Bowl. He's starting to look like that. Even better than last year, and just like that, Abracadabra.
Abracadabra. So you have zero sympathy for Ezekiel Elliott.
It's not, no. Joy.
I want to know what you think. I don't care what she thinks
Joy,
or any Article 46 says.
Joy,
what does Shannon Sharpe think?
Joy said,
in his heart of hearts. You have any sympathy? I think you've expressed sympathy on this show.
Zeke is set to miss 6 games. Shannon, how will this play out? She didn't ask me that I have sympathy.
I'm asking you.
Skip, I want you to go
I'm asking you.
What?
Do you have any sympathy for this young man and what he's going through?
I told you I would fight it.
You didn't tell me anything.
I did. I said Zeke should fight it. I have a problem with it.
Thank you.
But it's Article 46. They agreed to it, Skip.
So, is it my turn?
It's your turn.
I'm outraged over this. I'm sickened by it. I am disillusioned by it. And Ezekiel Elliott and his legal team has spent hundreds and hundreds of hours and God knows how much money fighting this. And I believe they will and should continue to fight it by trying to file this in the 24 hours she granted them. They get a stay of 24 hours to try to get this refiled in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan. I don't know if they can pull this off in that time. Some legal experts think they don't have enough time to pull this off, so that's out of my league and over my head and out of my lane. But I know they will fight to try because Ezekiel Elliott continues to say, I'm fighting for my good name. And I do think that Shannon Sharpe in his heart of hearts has some sympathy or even empathy for that.
Absolutely. Skip, but I told you that, Skip. I don't, because once the 2 police departments set it aside, I thought that the NFL should have left it alone. But that wasn't what they decided. And when you make your point, I'll get back to it and I try to explain why.
Okay. So I believe this has taken a whole lot out of Ezekiel Elliott. Once again, he had to fly all the way to New York yesterday on their quote-unquote day off.
Well, he stayed in Washington. He didn't fly back with the team. He stayed.
But I'm saying, now you got to fly back. And,
right.
And it's just, it takes something out of your psyche.
Of course.
Because he had to go to court in Texas. Now he's going to court in New York. And he might have to go back to court in New York if they get this refiled. And I believe it has already taken its quote-unquote pound of flesh out of his psyche because he has not been himself until the last couple of games, as you indicate. But I believe he has to keep fighting because his owner wants to keep fighting. And his owner is as outraged as I am. And again, I'm going to restate my position. I believe he has been railroaded into a 6-game suspension without conclusive proof or evidence by an accuser without, dare I say, strong credibility. And I believe the NFL clearly wants to make a statement here. They want to show in the wake of the Ray Rice fiasco that they're doing everything in their power to stamp out domestic violence, and they have seized upon an incredibly popular young breakthrough player, Ezekiel Elliott, to make him the face of their new zero-tolerance domestic violence policy. And he played right into their hands when we saw on St. Patrick's Day the video of him up on the rooftop pulling the woman's top down, because then it's easy because that's your one video evidence. You can say, and got you.
And people made the leap from that to this.
And it's easy to jump to this conclusion. So what do we know? I got to reframe this. We know that 2 police departments, just not one, but Columbus and Fort Lauderdale, both interviewed the accuser and cleared Ezekiel Elliott.
Correct.
And we know that a key member of Roger Goodell's staff that you referred to, named Kia Roberts, who went to Duke undergraduate, Vanderbilt Law School, and served 8 years as an assistant DA in Brooklyn, handled God knows how many domestic violence cases, but many, many domestic violence cases. She was the only member of the NFL front office to interview said accuser, not once or twice, but 6 times. And her conclusion was not credible enough, no suspension. But she was cut out of the final meeting run by Roger Goodell in which the punishment was decided upon. And she turned on her boss and asked to testify at the appeals hearing that she was cut out of said process. And yesterday in that court in New York City, there was a quick session with the NFL attorneys that went very quietly and quickly. No surprise here because it's a home court advantage that they have in Manhattan. God knows what strings might get pulled. And then came our man, Kessler.
Jeffrey Kessler.
Jeffrey Kessler. And he went at it with said judge. And there it got loud and it got contentious. And the main point of order was Kia Roberts. He kept saying, do you realize, I want you to understand that, Kia Roberts, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this could be operating with said judge. This is my 2 cents from a distance. It's just a guess. But it's very possible that a little or a lot of this played in her decision. In no way, shape, or form could she come across as looking like she was defending or supporting or condoning or tolerating domestic violence. I just think that operates when you have a female judge. And I get it. I respect that. Because in no way, shape, or form could she come across as looking like, wait a second, you're giving in to a young black man who's accused of domestic violence. It could be a bad look for her going forward, right?
Right.
So I'm going to say a little of that is operating. But I'm going to remind you that the Texas judge, remember it got filed first in the state of Texas, named Amos Mazant. And he ruled right away, he took one look at this and he said, number one, the question before the court is merely whether Elliott received a fundamentally fair hearing before the arbitrator. The answer is he did not. This is the Texas judge. And then he also made a strong point that focused on Harold Henderson's ruling that failure to have Roger Goodell or Elliott's accuser testify at the appeals hearing. And you said, well, Article 46. But again, he's just being a judge. He's dealing with a citizen of the United States and looking at, did he get a fundamentally fair hearing? And this judge said no. But the NFL was able to jump in and say, gotcha again, because you, NFLPA, filed too quickly. You filed before the appeals hearing had even concluded, and you got this in your jurisdiction, which was the state of Texas. So we say no, we're going to get this moved, so they had to go to New Orleans to get it moved. So it just started up last night because she was on vacation. So she comes back and in one day and agrees to the NFL's request to expedite this and get it finished in one quick day. She just looked at it last night and said, boom, no. And her response, and you read most of it, but she said that this was a fundamentally fair process and that Ezekiel had ample opportunity to challenge the initial findings in the arbitration hearing. Really? So one judge says way over here, and this judge says way over here. Well, which is it? And Jerry Jones is so outraged that he said, what is it? This was on Sunday night. Jerry Jones says, what is important is that Ezekiel Elliott gets a fair shake. Zeke in no way, by any standard in this country, has done anything wrong. He's talking about him as a United States citizen. Jerry went on to
now
say,
he cares about rights of United States citizens?
Well, okay.
Oh,
no,
now he cares,
Okay,
Joy.
now I'm asking you the same question because you're being a little hypocritical here too. So Jerry went on to say, we in the NFL don't have the system in place for this, and we're trying to make one up in a few short months, and it's got too many ways to not be fair to a person like Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh, a person like a Dallas Cowboy. Judge, what's the name again, Skip? Fowler?
Mazant? Fela.
Fela.
Yeah.
Judge Fela.
Yeah.
And please allow me to read this and what she said. And this is verbatim. She writes, court should not superimpose extra contractual definition of fairness in arbitration beyond the actual standard and procedures for which the parties bargain. Further, judges emphasized that the court should not vacate arbitration awards, which he refers to Harold Henderson, upholding the 6-game suspension, even if the arbiter committed serious errors. In other words, even though it's flawed, even though it's unfair, you knew that at the time of signing the contract and you signed it anyway. That is what she said.
Yeah, but at some point, a judge can supersede Article 46 by saying, you know what, NFL? I'm sorry, but your whole process is fundamentally unfair when you're going to condemn this young man as a violator of domestic violence, right?
And you know why? Here's why the NFL did what they did when they didn't have to hear from the accuser. Because they didn't want what happened in a normal standard case of domestic violence. Let's just say the guy's worth 30, 40, 50 million dollars. He pays her not to show up to court. When they don't show up to court, Joy, in a normal domestic violence case, what normally happens?
Gets dismissed.
And the NFL didn't want that to happen. So on one hand, they don't take the alleged victim testimony. They don't hear from her directly. But if you go to court, Skip, if you go to a normal court, if she says, well, he did this, we get ready to go to court, all of a sudden she doesn't show up, the Greg Hardy case, the NFL says, we don't want that anymore. So we don't need to hear from her. So we're going to take it upon ourselves.
They did hear from her 6 times. Director of Investigations.
No, I'm saying, you're saying he deserved the right to cross. No, Commissioner Goodell heard. Commissioner Goodell didn't hear from her. Kia Roberts heard from her. And judge is also saying, he doesn't have to put any more weight into what Kia Roberts
What does it tell you that Kia Roberts was not invited to the final meeting in which the punishment was decided upon? Help me out. What does that tell you? Railroad, that they had already made up their minds. Proof, no proof. Evidence, no evidence. We are going to convict him, in the court of public opinion, of domestic violence because we're going to suspend him for 6 games.
As in Article 46, as she keep referencing to Tom Brady and this and going back, if it's not in the if it's not in here,
well, it's
where
one thing
Kia Roberts has to show up.
It's one thing to convict someone of deflating footballs. It's another to make them wear, as you say, the scarlet letters DV.
Skip, I get it. I totally agree. But Jeffrey Kessler was also on the NFLPA when they signed this in 2011. They knew it would and this is what I told them at the time. I say, while you're bargaining for petty privileges, guess what? Oh, OTA is going to get pushed back a month. Oh, we don't want lifetime benefits. Oh, we're only going to have 13 padded practices during the season. So guess what? Roger Goodell goes back and he tells the owners, guys, they did not ask for lifetime benefits. This is what they want. I get to keep all this power, and they don't want lifetime benefits. All they want is 13 padded practices during the season. They want 1 a day in training camps, and they want to move OTAs back. And the owner said, hold on, wait a minute. You mean to tell me you can still be the judge, jury, and executioner? We don't have to give up lifetime benefits, and all they want is this? Roger Goodell, why are you talking to us? You better get back there and sign this. Because they knew they had them. Skip, I get it. It is, and the judge says it's fundamentally unfair. But it was unfair when you signed the contract. That's why they give great deference, because they don't want you to come back in here and try to undo a bad deal that you agreed to. You had Jeffrey Kessler. You had all these $5,000 and $10,000 a day lawyers.
Yeah. All that matters is the Texas judge said fundamentally unfair, and she said fundamentally fair. She's not even talking about Article 46. She's just looking at the process. That's what's in question here. That's what's before the court. And she said the process is just great.
No,
I defend the process.
She said court should not superimpose extra contractual definition of fairness, even though it's not
just the process. Is it fair or not?
No.
What's wrong? Do you think the Texas judge is an idiot?
Skip.
Again, he's not a Cowboy fan. He's from Pittsburgh.
Skip.
Just for the record.
No, but here's the thing. He's looking at it like he's like this is a normal court proceeding. He didn't even look at the collective bargaining agreement. And she's looking at that because it's
so she's better than he is.
I'm not saying that, Skip, but if you just, Skip, what is in this document?
Okay, remember, Judge Berman, at the same level of court as she is, laughed the NFL out of his court, and they took it to the Second Circuit Court.
And what happened to that?
2-1. 2 judges said no.
Okay,
one said
that's all
I'm
you
with
need.
Tom.
And guess what, Skip? That's why they have uneven numbers.
In the Brady case, 2 judges, if I include Judge Berman, said we're with Tom Brady, and 2 said we're with the NFL. Overall, that's the
Skip.
big picture.
At the
Final score. Scoreboard says 2-2.
So why did Tom Brady serve those 4 games?
Because he said, I can't keep doing this. I've become too big a distraction because the season was upon them, and he didn't want to go to Supreme Court, even though they were poised to go to Supreme Court.
Here's the thing. If it's 2-2, why would he serve 2 games?
He backed off. He gave up. And
but why would he back off if it's tied? It's tied 2-2.
I just told you why. He said he'd become too big a distraction to his team, and he just said, I'm going to suck it up and take my punishment for 4 games, and then
No, he did not suck it up, Skip. You're being disingenuous. He took the suspension because the appellate court overruled the lower court, which takes precedent.
I know for a fact they were poised to go to Supreme Court if he said yes. He said yes.
I just know what happened.
And it takes so much out of you. Do you know how many hours you have to spend preparing for these sessions?
He don't have to do anything. All he has to do
He
is
has
tell
to
his-
do everything.
All I'm saying,
it took a lot out of him.
the appellate court overruled the lower court by a score of 2-1. That's why they have uneven numbers on the judges panel, because if it's 2, one might be for, one might be against. But since it was 2-1, the suspension went into effect. Now, he could have fought it. Now, let's hear all that. He wanted to do this. All I know is that Tom Brady served the 4-game suspension. It turned out fairy tale ending for him and his team.
He came back with a vendetta. He took it out on the league.
But that don't have anything to do with this. Did he serve the suspension? And this judge, she kept referencing it. She says, I'm not about to give you anything that's not in this contract.
Fundamentally fair.
No,
that was her final conclusion.
She said,
really?
Courts
Interesting.
She said courts should not superimpose extra contractual definition of fairness.
Do you think he got a fundamentally fair hearing?
There
you think so? No, you don't. You don't. I can hear it in your voice.
Judge Joey, tell Skip what's in here. Skip, we got to stay within here. See right here? This right here, Skip.
Yeah.
Whatever's in here is
You know what's right here? Judge Mazant's ruling. Fundamentally unfair.
Well, we still have a few hours to find out what actually happens because they can still appeal this as well.
No mercy.
This is Shannon Sharpe, and before the show moves along, a quick word about Home Depot and Husky Tools. They say in life there are no guarantees. Well, I'm here to tell you there just might be one exception. In 1924, Husky started making things for people who make things, and they did it with common sense. That meant adding function, never frills, and making tools that stood the test of time. 93 years later, Husky is still making quality-crafted, durable tools, and Husky stands by their hand tools for life, so they gave their hand tools a lifetime warranty. Like the Husky Ratchet, with a 100-position ratcheting design and a 10% longer handle than standard ratchets, or the virtually unbreakable Husky Flashlight with the ability to withstand a 30-foot drop, both guaranteed for a lifetime, built so you won't need it. Now that's a pretty sure thing, and to Husky, that's common sense. Husky, common sense tools since 1924, with hand tools guaranteed for a lifetime, found only at the Home Depot.
No mercy.
The Chiefs moved to 6-2 after beating the Broncos last night 29-19. Travis Kelce had a season-high 133 receiving yards, and the defense forced 5 turnovers, including a fumble return for a touchdown by Marcus Peters. Next up for Kansas City is a trip to Dallas on Sunday. If Ezekiel Elliott loses his appeal, he'll be suspended for the game. We're joined by Fox NFL analyst Tony Gonzalez. Welcome, Tony.
Yeah, happy Halloween, guys.
Is it possible that Travis Kelce's playing at a higher level than either of you two ever did?
Oh, Skip, come on now.
Ever?
He's a receiver.
I don't know.
Like I
He's
told
just
you,
a
he's
receiver?
He's a receiver.
Okay.
He's best tight end I've ever seen in Kansas City uniform. You ever catch a score on a sluggo?
Yeah.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Not
No, you
just
didn't.
go
No,
up there.
I'm not
I'm
talking about just going in the red zone and just posting up and they throw you the ball. I'm saying actually running.
It's too easy. You don't like it.
You see what I'm saying?
It's too easy. By the way, nice mask. I like that. Happy Halloween.
I am.
It's a mask. You get the joke, man?
It's a joke.
Oh, you a joke. Oh, now you a joke.
You don't get it.
Oh, my goodness.
Shannon, I'll start with you.
Work with them.
If Zeke is suspended, what do you expect when the Chiefs play the Cowboys?
Looking at the Chiefs' defense, and a lot of people might not know this, but they're the 30th ranked defense in football. 28th against the rush, 28th against the pass. They gave up last night on 31 carries, 5.7 yards a clip. My only question is, Skip, why didn't the Broncos have 50 rush attempts instead of Trevor Siemian having 36 pass attempts?
I don't know.
That's neither here nor there.
Good question.
The thing that Dallas is really, really good at is the area that the Chiefs are really, really susceptible at, even without Zeke, and that's running the football. Now, when division rivals play each other, it's kind of hard to gauge because you don't want to, well, you saw how Denver ran the ball, but Denver knows Kansas City. Kansas City knows Denver. Dallas doesn't play Kansas City that often. But I've seen a theme reoccurring. You saw the Steelers, how they bludgeoned the Chiefs. The Broncos, without a porous offensive line, bludgeoned the Chiefs.
By the way, 31 carries for 177
Yeah.
yards.
And somehow Trevor Siemian threw the ball 36 times. But come on, Skip, stop. You tried to give me.
Somehow he threw it to the other team with 2 of the most unsightly interceptions I've seen all year.
Oh, you mean to tell me a guy with an average arm rolling to his right shouldn't throw the ball back?
Why was that about?
Or a guy with a third string tight end throwing against the defense's best. Skip, stop it! I knew what you tried
like
to do.
DeMarcus Peters. It looked like that was his primary.
He tried to get me. He tried to get me to get on John Elway. I know what he tried to do. I am not talking about John.
John Elway?
I'm going to eat
this
at that
Halloween.
restaurant. The thing is that the Kansas City Chiefs defense are great at creating turnovers.
They are.
Unfortunately, they're playing a guy that doesn't turn the ball over that often. So they're going to be up against it.
Are you making a case for Dallas?
Kansas City's offense can be dynamic at times. They got Tyreek Hill, who has speed to burn. They got Travis Kelce, who's the best right now. He's the best tight end in football. He can run, he can catch, he's big, he's agile, he can line up tight, play him in space, play him out wide. And Kareem Hunt's been under wraps the last couple of weeks. They need to get him back going because I don't believe Alex Smith. I mean, question is, do you believe Alex Smith is going to play this entire season without turning the football over? Because he turns this ball over with the way that defense is playing. Now all of a sudden you're
They had a strip sack on Alex, but
yeah.
he hadn't thrown it to anybody.
Exactly. But still, you got 5 turnovers and you only had 29 points. That's not a good thing. That's not a good sign. So the Cowboys are they're riding into shape. But I still believe that old bell cow, since they got that bell cow at the pasture, somebody might be in trouble, and it's not me.
What do you think, Mr. Gonzalez?
I'm kind of with you. I feel like you're making a case for the Cowboys that they could win this game, and I'm kind of with you on this too because, first of all, when you lose your team's best player, the first thing you want to say is, well, we can still win without him. I think just from
he said Zeke's the best player. That's what he said. I ain't say that. He said that.
Zeke. Well, he's playing at this time. And I think this is also an opportunity for Dak Prescott to go out there and say, okay, some people are starting to jump off of his bandwagon. I'm not the one.
He's never on the bandwagon.
Well, he's never on it, okay?
He says flash in the pan.
I did not see.
That's what he said.
See, you can't say that about him. And we're going to find out. And that's the beautiful thing about this. The only silver lining is that we're going to be able to see how good this quarterback really is going against the Kansas City Chiefs. The offensive line is still there. They still got Darren McFadden, Alfred Morris. Those guys can play. Those guys are good running backs, and I think they'll be fine. They're going to split time, and I think they'll be able to do a pretty good job. But Dak Prescott, he is the one I'm most anxious to see as they go through these next 6 games, if he is, in fact, suspended, which it looks like he's going to be. I still think the Cowboys are going to be a very good football team. They still got a good defense. The way Andy Reid makes offenses, they're going to catch them off guard for a little bit. But once they make those adjustments, I think this is going to be a great football game. I still think I'm excited. I'm excited to see what these Cowboys
Before
can
you
do.
go, can I ask you a question? The term backup, what does that mean?
That means that you're not good enough to start.
Okay.
Yes.
So Alfred Morris and Darren McFadden are backups to who?
To the best running back in the NFL.
Okay. No, he's second best back. But if they were that good, Zeke would not be on this roster. Am I correct? Because they had Darren McFadden before they drafted Zeke. And even though he rushed for 1,000 yards, they got Zeke Elliott with the 4th pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And Alfred Morris, he could have been, wasn't he at Washington first?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Go ahead, Skip. Go ahead.
Who had a good rookie, had the same rookie year that Ezekiel Elliott did.
You know, sometimes words have multiple definitions, and there are other definitions of backup. It's what you do on your opinions on this show. You back up.
You know, I back up my opinion with
Like Michael Jackson.
with facts.
Oh, well, one of your opinions was that your Broncos are going to win the division. That was your big pick, and I think they're dead in the water now. I think you're down and out on that one.
They're dead in the water of the offense.
I think they're going to Paxton Lynch. Maybe he'll save the day now.
Stop it.
Maybe.
Pax.
Yeah.
No, Paxton Lynch.
So I can't read a lot into what Kansas City pulled off last night, 29-19, because of everything you just said. And by the way, Kansas City went 2 for 12 on 3rd down. Again, that's a tribute to that defense.
Yes.
It's still really good.
Really.
But Alex Smith and company went 2 for 12. And Kareem Hunt tried 22 times to run the football, and he went a grand total of 46 yards. And against the Patriots on that opening Thursday night, it seemed like every time he touched the ball, he went 46 yards in one try, right? So 22 carries for 46 yards, that's an average of 2.1 a carry. Again, tribute to the defense? I guess so, but Kareem Hunt has not been Kareem Hunt the last, 3 weeks or so? The league has said, no, we're going to put the ball back in Alex Smith's hands.
That is
We're
correct.
going to make him beat us, and he keeps beating. And he has been really, really good, but we know he has a history of coming unglued. When one thing goes wrong, then he goes completely wrong. We've seen, have we not seen that happen before? So the Cowboy defense is starting to come alive, starting to come together. They're playing a lot of kids. It's more about the system than any one cog in the system.
That is
and
correct.
It's starting to get cohesive. It's starting to get coordinated, and they're starting to get those contagious turnovers against Kirk Cousins, and they blocked a field goal that was the turning point in the year. And all of a sudden, they're starting to feel pretty good about themselves, and yet there's one big blip here that's coming to Texas Stadium. And the blip in the game last night was Travis Kelce, because he was sensational.
Yeah.
He took the game over. He was the difference maker where you just can't cover him. And by the way, he can dance too, because that was
Kansas City hadn't had a tight end like that in like 30, 40 years.
40 years.
I can't dance. You're right about that.
You couldn't. Skip, why do you set Tony up for that? You know good well Tony could not move like this young man.
What?
Well, this young man can really.
Yeah,
He can run
could
with the
move.
ball after the catch, yeah, but ain't nobody running a route like me. I'll tell you that. Or Jordan Reed, he can run a route. He can run a route.
What you on this morning, man? I know it's legal here. A certain amount is legal in California, but you must have partaken early this morning.
No, he's clear-eyed. And he's
No,
I feel good.
yeah,
I feel good
clear-minded. So Travis Kelce could be a big problem for this defense, and that's why I say Byron Jones, come on down. This is going to be Byron Jones is a big stud athlete out of University of Connecticut, and he's going to have to keep this to a low roar. And I'm not sure he can, because Alex Smith has a wavelength with this guy, and that's their team to me.
You know, Skip, I'm looking at the Chiefs defense, and I knew Eric Berry was a big part.
Big loss.
But, oh, my goodness, Skip. The Broncos tight ends, they dropped passes.
They did.
I mean, Benny Fowler had a touchdown. He dropped a touchdown, dropped the first down. So when Trevor was on the money, guys were dropping the ball. And then when he wasn't throwing it to the Chiefs, I mean, the interceptions that he threw, Skip, they weren't even close. They weren't even close to the receivers. The receivers really didn't have a chance. And on fourth down, you throw it to the smallest receiver on your roster who just came in the game. And on the two-point conversion, you throw it to the guy, the only guy that's double covered. Everybody else singled up across the board. You throw it to Demaryius Thomas, who's double covered, and you throw it out of bounds. I'm like, I just don't get it.
He's
But
not
let me tell you
playing
what's going to
right
happen,
now.
Skip. I've been in situations like this before where one side is more dominant than the other. And even though the quarterback that's on the bench might not be better than the guy that's starting, you got to do something, because the other unit is getting upset, said,
I would.
that guy is costing us the ball game.
Correct.
We played well enough, even with 5 turnovers, to win this game. But you're turning the ball over, and they're not moving the ball, and they're kicking field goals. So they're getting points without moving the ball against us, let alone the scoop and score that the offense gave. I don't know. Jamal Charles got some kind of bad luck in that stadium, because you remember 2 years ago, Skip, they got stripped. They were just trying to run out the clock, get to overtime. He fumbles with 24 seconds on the clock, and then last night, his homecoming, a scoop and score. They're going to have to do something. The Broncos have a good enough defense, but unfortunately, they're not generating the scoop and scores, the pick sixes, to get points, because their offense is so sporadic at best at moving the ball.
So I told you, Denver played its Super Bowl against Dallas
my
at Mile
goodness.
High. That's what happened. And look at you now. Look what happened. You were ready to put Trevor Siemian on that Monday, at least in the Pro Bowl. not the Hall of Fame.
I was not.
Yes, you were.
No, because I know what Skip. I'm not the greatest evaluator of talent, but I have a very good eye. I know what he is. I know what he isn't.
Well, now it's Pax's time.
Oh, he's starting?
Pax.
Got to.
Gotta get behind him.
What about Brock? What'd you bring Brock back for?
Brock.
Yeah, hey, they brought him back. Hell.
You got to see what you have in Pax.
Oh, you need to see? I mean, when I was growing up, I didn't need to look at my grandfather's wallet. I already know what's in there. Nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, you already know it. I mean, if you got it, you already know what you got.
No mercy.
The Patriots made a huge trade before today's deadline, sending backup quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo to the 49ers for a second-round pick. Garoppolo started and won 2 games for New England last year when Tom Brady was serving his suspension. Garoppolo is set to be a free agent at the end of the season, while Brady turned 40 in August. Shannon, are you surprised by this move?
I am very surprised, especially at this point in time. They're basically one hit away from being the Green Bay Packers. They're rolling the dice. And Coach Belichick doesn't strike me as a guy, watching him and following his career and watch how he does business. He does not strike me as a guy that will put all his eggs in one basket and then possibly stumble on the way to the market. Now, I will agree, this is a very sturdy basket. He has 18 years of data on Tom Brady, not missing any games with the exception of those 15 games that he missed in 2008 with that knee injury. But as far as shoulder, ankle, anything of that nature, he hasn't missed any time. So he likes his odd once in 18 years thus far. But here's the thing, though. 2018, 2019, I guess Coach Belichick feels that he could go in the draft and find a quarterback. This is what we also know about this team and Coach Belichick and how they do business. They will keep you, but you got to play for them at their price. Tom Brady has always given them a discount.
Yes.
And he looks at it like, if this guy's going to play for a discount, you're going to play on a discount. And if you're not willing to play on a discount, Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't strike me as a guy that was willing to play on a discount. He knows it's going to take $50, $60 million in guaranteed money. And Coach Belichick says, well, we only got two games of tape on you. Chandler Jones, they weren't going to be able to pay him. Now, he had a little off-the-field incident, but they weren't going to be able to pay him the money that he was going to get in free agency. Jamie Collins. If you look at the history, for the most part, since Coach Belichick has been there, only one guy has gotten free agent money and remained on that team, and that was Richard Seymour. Everybody else get below market value because that's what Tom Brady, their greatest player, has always done. And they look at it like, if Tom's going to take less than market value, you're damn sure going to take less than market value. So I am surprised for the simple fact, Skip, is that all their eggs is in Tom Brady's basket. He's 40 years old, and he's taken a lot more hits. He's been sacked a lot more thus far this year than he did all of last year. How many hits does a 40-year-old body, how many hits can it withstand, say, over the next 7-8 games moving into the playoffs? But they put a lot of stock in believing that Tom Brady's going to stay healthy because they only had 2 quarterbacks on the roster. They traded one away, so now they have none. Everybody believes that Brian Hoyer, who was in New England to begin, was an undrafted, undrafted.
2009 to 11, yep.
Will go back there. But if you think I do not believe that Brian Hoyer is as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. But we might not even have to find out because if Tom Brady doesn't get injured, we'll never know. But that's an awful lot to ask of a 40-year-old to stay healthy throughout the entirety of this season. So I'm surprised that Coach Belichick would roll the dice because he strikes me as a guy that's a little bit more calculated. But they're a hit away from being Green Bay.
I can say that just about every NFL team is a hit away from being Green Bay. If you lose your starter, you're just gone.
But here's the thing. Green Bay and Patriots have Super Bowl aspirations. There are a lot of teams, you lose your starter, it might be a blessing in disguise. You hate to see anybody get hurt. But they're in a very, very unique situation because the expectation level of week in and week out of what those guys can do.
Now, back to Joy's question. I was shocked when I heard this news last night, late yesterday afternoon, I guess it was. I was shocked because you and I have talked for months on this show about how it felt like Bill Belichick was positioning himself after winning 5 Super Bowl rings to be able to try to prove he could win 1 more or 2 more or whatever more without Tom Brady.
Okay.
And I was convinced, and I think you were heading in that direction, that they were just going to have to let Tom go after this year. That would be a nice parting gift. Just let him go choose where he wants to finish out.
Because you thought, like I thought, they kept Garoppolo through the offseason. They could have traded him last year's trade deadline. They could have traded him in the offseason or right near the draft, and they still didn't.
And his value, Garoppolo's, seemed to be through the roof just before the draft, and Bill hung on. And I'm assuming Bill hung on because he wanted to make sure that he was right or wrong about Tom Brady.
Correct.
That he wanted to give it an 8-game sample size up to the trade deadline, which is upon us.
Yes.
Just to see at age 40 if he does hit the wall. And guess what? Once again, Tom Brady ran right through the wall. He did it again. I think he's been as good as ever. I'm not going to say better, but as good as ever. I made the case yesterday to you on this show. I think he's the MVP at the halfway point because Tom Brady has made up for, won in spite of, a defense that has, I know it's started to percolate a little bit, started to come together, but it has still given up the most yards in the National Football League. And the first 4 games were flat out all-time disasters.
Correct.
And he did lose before the season started his security blanket go-to number 1 receiver, Julian Edelman, and he had to bring in 2 new guys, Brandon Cooks, Philip Dorsett, and try to figure them out. And now it appears he might have lost Chris Hogan, and Gronk has been in and out of the lineup.
Is Dorsett even playing anymore?
I don't know. He's their 4th receiver. So I don't know. But they traded Jacoby Brissett.
Right. Straight
a
up.
potential starting quarterback. And when it happened, I was like, wow, that's a lot to give up for Philip Dorsett. But it looked like Philip Dorsett was diamond in the rough because under Andrew Luck, or with Andrew Luck, he was a first-round pick.
Correct.
That he's not, again, our friend Chris Carter has made a big point about this, and he knew Philip Dorsett from his days in Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
At, where is it?
St.
Thomas Aquinas. And he said Philip Dorsett is not a great deep threat. He just doesn't seem to have the ball skills, the perspective to run underneath.
He doesn't track the ball well.
Yeah, he doesn't track it well, but underneath, if you get it to him in any kind of space, he can flat out fly.
Yeah.
So I figured he might start to become a little bit of a, maybe even or much faster Edelman Amendola. Not happening yet. Maybe it's going to take a year for that. But despite all that, despite some drop-off in the running game, because Gillislee hasn't been quite the force that I thought he might be that he was at Buffalo, right? And now it's Dion Lewis as your feature back at 5'9", 195 pounds. And all of a sudden, Tom Brady is holding that team up here at 6-2, and they're just a tick behind the Pittsburgh Steelers for the 1 seed in the AFC. Well, that's sensational. And I think Tom Brady beat Belichick at Belichick's game. That's how I look at it, that he won again. He tied Bill's hands by playing so well through 8 games at just as high as a level as he ever has, that I think Belichick finally had to sit back and say, you know what? Maybe he's right. Maybe he can play until he's 45, because that's what he just gave into.
Well, he definitely gambled that he was going to finish this year and play 2018.
Yeah.
Now, he definitely gambled on that. But if I'm anybody, Skip, if I'm Kirk Cousins, I'm ticked off. Kyle,
okay, but wait a second. Okay, I'll go there. But again, Belichick, to finish my point, he gambled and lost. He had, before the draft last year, all the reports were that he wanted 2 firsts for Jimmy G.
Right.
Because Jimmy G had gotten an audition early last year.
Right.
And it wasn't that big a sample size.
It was, 6 quarters?
Yeah, 6 quarters.
Arizona,
then he got his shoulder hurt, right?
In the Miami game,
But he was sensational at Arizona on opening, whatever it was, night.
Opening
Monday,
night.
Monday
It was Sunday night.
Sunday night, yeah. So the point was, that's really it for Jimmy G. But because of that, it's through the roof.
Right.
And so you gamble, and I don't know what if he could have just gotten 1 first-round pick?
Yeah, that's what makes it so hard for me to believe that someone was throwing around a first-round pick, because it doesn't strike me as something Coach Belichick, a first-round pick, but I'm going to trade him for a second-round pick. I don't know if all that was true. Maybe that was something that they threw out, Skip, that, trying to drum up the interest and maybe trying to get to that 2 or the 2 first-round picks, or maybe get a first and a third. It's just hard for me to believe that at this juncture now, you're going to take a second-round pick when if you could have gotten a first and not take that first.
Okay, think of what packages have been given for unproven college quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back real quick to RG3. The Redskins go from 6 down or up to 2, right? And to do so, they have to give
they swap positions.
They swap positions, and they give 2 first-rounders and a second to move up for RG3, who had simply won the Heisman Trophy at Baylor University.
Correct.
Period. End of story.
Yes.
Jimmy G, at least you have some NFL sample
got
size,
6
right?
quarters. Yeah.
Okay. Then look at Carson Wentz. The Eagles swap first. They go from 8 up to 2, but they have to give up a first, second, third, and a fourth just for Carson Wentz.
Right.
Well, are you sure? I mean, he's starting to look like he's pretty good.
Yes.
Okay, I give you that. But Trubisky, you swap places. You just go from 3 to 2 to take him, but you have to give up a third, a fourth, and another 2 years out third. Well, it's just a lot of stuff to give up. And all Belichick got back was a second-round pick? Really?
Right.
Well,
I guess he's counting on that pick being very high.
I guess so.
Because,
In the
you
second
know, San-
round. Well,
right,
it would be.
right.
It should be pretty high in the second round. But again, all these packages, the Deshaun package, that they went from 25 up to 12. The Texans didn't
Right.
take Deshaun. They gave up a first-round pick
Right.
to do that.
Right.
Really?
And Skip, and if you get your guy, there's no package that's too
Okay.
big. The Houston Texans look like they've gotten their guy. So if they would have had to give up 2 number ones,
Sure,
and
now.
2 of the right.
But a lot swing and miss on this.
Exactly. And so that's the Jared, like you said, the Jared Goff. That's what you don't know. It's the unknown. And yeah, we got a little tape on, but we only got 6 quarters on Jimmy Garoppolo. We know how quarterback Rohan Davey looked good for the Patriots, but when he went elsewhere, and there are a lot of guys, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks look good playing quarterback for the Patriots in Foxborough.
Okay.
For Coach Belichick.
All right.
But we've seen a lot of coaches also look good coaching under his umbrella.
So what do you think Kyle Shanahan just got? You buying Jimmy G?
Well, he's banking. Well, he made a $7 million mistake on Brian Hoyer. We can agree with that. I guess he's saying that 0-8 starting to add up, Skip. And you're looking at it like, and this is the worst start in San Francisco 49er history. I'm supposed to be an offensive guru. I'm not getting production at that position. And me trying to win, I'm not going there because there's a good chance they're going to go 0-16 if they kept with C.J. Beathard. Mm-hmm. He's saying, okay, I'm going to have a week to basically try to get Jimmy Garoppolo prepped and groomed, ready to go start. If he's right, it's only going to cost him, still going to cost him 50, 60 million.
Okay.
But if he's wrong, you just gave a second-round pick, and now you're going to have to pay $100 million to get Kirk Cousins.
Okay. But think about this. For merely a high second-round pick, which is not the end of the world because you've stockpiled a bunch of picks already,
Right.
you get to check out Jimmy G
Right.
for 7 games. Not this weekend,
Right.
but if you get him ready for the
Right.
next weekend. And by the way, down the road, they're going to play these defenses so you can really check him out.
Mm-hmm.
They play the Giants. They play the Seahawks. They go to Chicago, which is playing pretty good defense. Titans, Jags, and Rams, all pretty good defense.
Yeah, all of them play
so
deep.
by the end of the year, through those 7 starts for Jimmy G, you're going to say aha or no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you could just cut your loss if you want
Right.
to. You could just say, we spent a high second, but we found out he's not our guy.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then you could either attempt to trade him, you could just cut bait. You could just let him.
Well, here's the thing, though, Skip. He's a free agent after this year. And that's what Coach Belichick realized.
Yeah.
If you franchise him, that's $25 million.
Okay.
I'm not paying you $25 million and Tom Brady's only making $13
No,
million.
I got that.
So
No.
I think the thing is, Skip, that you got to keep him for at least a year. You got to keep him for the rest of this year and all of 2018 to actually see, can you really get an evaluation, bringing a guy in halfway through the season and getting a total evaluation in 7 games? Can you really, really do that? Don't you think you need him in your OTAs, in your training camp for a season?
You could argue, but I think you can get a pretty good idea how you click with him.
Mm-hmm.
How will Kyle click with him? Because now back to your point you were going to make, Kyle really, really, really knows Kirk Cousins.
Yes.
But Kyle said, no, I think I want to try this guy,
Right.
who's still basically unproven to me.
Yeah, 6 quarters.
Yeah.
6, and I get it. He played well, but 6 quarters, Skip. That's not a large sample size to say, okay, yeah, I think this guy's the real deal, because we've seen guys play. I mean, Brock Osweiler looked good for 7 games, and then they found that he couldn't play dead in the horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
But Houston had to pay $37 million to figure that out. Here's the question with Jimmy Garoppolo, and do you invest 50s? Because he sees what these other guys, Mike Glennon got $15 million. Yeah, it's 1 year. Jimmy Garoppolo says, I'm better than him.
Yep.
So at the bare minimum, you're going to pay him somewhere between $15 and $20 million if he's on San Francisco's roster
would agree.
in 2018.
But is that better than paying Kirk Cousins, whatever
million?
you say,
He'll get $100 million.
$100 million guaranteed?
Yeah.
I just think Kyle Shanahan knows what Kirk Cousins is and is not. I'm not a big Kirk Cousins fan, and he's definitely not worth $100 million guaranteed. And I hope this ensures that the Redskins feel trapped with Kirk Cousins, like they just have to go forward with.
Skip, if you really broke it down and says, okay, what's someone's worth? I mean, you think about it. There's only like 4 or 5 quarterbacks that's worth that top tier money. But it's not about what you're worth, it's what someone's willing to pay. And teams believe that if they don't have a quarterback, that's really the only position they'll overpay. Because it's so hard to find that guy. And teams realize if I don't have this guy, I got no chance. Because look at the Broncos' defense. That if that was a regular defense, they give up 50 points last night. You turn the ball over 5 times, Skip, and one of them is a scoop and score, and you hold the team to under 30.
You don't have a quarterback.
You don't have a quarterback, you got no chance. But the mistake that teams are making, they think they can buy him. If I pay a guy $25 million, he got to be good. No, you just got $25 million hunk of junk.
So what does it tell you that Kyle Shanahan said no to paying Kirk Cousins that much money? What does it tell you?
Skip, I don't know if he said no yet, but it just makes it seem like, he
Everybody thought he was just waiting in the wings for this season to play out and be over so they could go ahead and commit long-term to Kirk Cousins as their future in San Francisco.
And that's why I said, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. I hope Kirk didn't put all his eggs in that basket thinking that, I'm automatically going to San Francisco. Skip, I look at it like this. I'm on the market for a car, Joey. I'm going to get me a new car. The old one, the one that I got, Skip, it's okay, but all of a sudden it put me down. So I don't have the money to go get the new car right now, so I got to get me old secondhand. That's what they call. That's what we used to call used car, secondhand car. Somebody had it before I got it, so first, now I'm second. So Skip, I got to get this secondhand car, and I'm gonna see. And now if it drive pretty good, it's gonna get me from point A to point B, and it's gonna save me some money. Well, I'm gonna hold off on that old new car. So Kyle might be saying, I'm gonna see with this old secondhand car, Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm gonna see how well he do, because if he do okay, I can hold off on that new car for a while, and because the new car is real expensive, Skip.
So you think he just covered his bets, Kyle Shanahan?
Yes.
And obviously Lynch and the whole front office, right?
Because here's the thing, Skip, they got 6-year deals. So do you want, Kyle Shanahan making somewhere between $7 and $8 million. You cut him after 2 years, Skip, you're going to have to pay this man still $35 million. Do you want to pay this man $35 million for sitting on his couch? No, so he's going to be there for a bare minimum of 3 years, Skip, possibly 4. Because I know teams, they're worth billions. But people ain't really trying to eat $14, $15, $20 million like that.
I'm not sold on Jimmy G.
No.
You're right. Look at history, even though Matt Castle went away and did make a Pro Bowl in Kansas City and has been pretty good.
Right.
He's still around. He's still starting for
If you just look at the history of free agents quarterbacks, Skip, for every Peyton Manning that left Indy and went to Denver, for every Drew Brees that left San Diego, but think about how many others go places and you're like, huh?
Great quarterbacks don't become free agents.
Yes, unless they're injured. And we know that's why Peyton Manning got up out of Indy. He was injured. We know it'd have been very interesting because they did trade Phillip Rivers. He was there. It would have been a very, very interesting situation, Skip, had Drew Brees not torn his shoulder and had only a 10 to 15% chance of ever playing again. How do they handle that situation? But normally, top tier, A quarterbacks, they don't become free agents. You never get a chance to see them unless they're on their last legs. You get like a Joe Namath, you get like a Johnny Unitas. Some of these older guys go in places, but they were done there. They had nothing.
Done.
But Drew Brees really was he was in the prime of his career, but he had an injury that 10 or 15%. Peyton Manning, if Peyton Manning's not injured, he's retiring the coach.
Sure.
But so in 6 games, think about it, Skip. You got basically, I say games. Quarters. That's what you got on Jimmy Garoppolo. All that preseason, I get all that. But I'm talking about you got 6 meaningful quarters of tape on Jimmy Garoppolo. And you traded a second-round pick for that. So you got to kick the tires. You got to give this every opportunity because I ain't really want to buy that $100 million car. That's a lot of money, Skip. $100 million? Let's see, $100 million?
But if you're completely sold on Kirk Cousins, because to me, you're right. If he's the answer, then no amount of money is too much. You can't overpay for a guy who can go win you a Super Bowl. You just can't.
Yeah, but
and he's not that guy.
But here's the thing, though, Skip. If you put True Serum in all 32 general managers, I bet you they'll only tell you 6 guys have a realistic shot of going and winning the chip.
Okay, but that guy who's not one of those 6 wants to be paid like one of those 6. And I'm not going to do it. And the Redskins keep saying, we're not going to do it, but they just keep franchising and overpaying by the year.
That's
for
the
him.
one position, Skip, that they because it's so hard to find, they will overpay for it. It's the only position you don't have to prove your worth. Every other position, you have to prove. Von Miller had to prove that he was one of the premier players to get what he got. And Ndamukong Suh, the cornerbacks, the wide receivers. Quarterbacks, you play that position. And because it's so hard to find, and they know without that position, we got no chance. I don't care how good your defense is. And Jacksonville got an outstanding defense. So do the Broncos. But there are days when if that defense is not getting scooping scores and pick sixes, like the Broncos, they look like, that's terrible.
Are you still as sold as you were last week on Kirk Cousins?
Yes, I still am.
Big-time quarterback.
I think given the right set of circumstances, I believe if he had a Zeke or one of these top-flight running backs, I believe he can be equally as productive. Yes, I do. Yes.
And I still believe he's an underconfident overachiever who will make lots of plays but never make the play to get you to the place by winning
That's
the
what
game.
I want. I want a guy that's going to overachieve. I want a guy that's going to spend extra time in the film room that's not going to rely solely on his athletic ability. Give me old Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins remind me of old Shay Sharpe. That's old Shay Sharpe. That's what Shay Sharpe was.
No, you were not an overachiever. They just missed because you were at Savannah State.
But see, I had to prove. And see, Kirk, anytime somebody's got something to prove, Skip, there's no length in which he won't go to prove, not to prove you wrong, but to prove himself right.
I know,
Kirk
but at
Cousins
that position, it's hard just to overachieve and win a Super Bowl at that position, unless you're Trent Dilfer and you're being carried by Ray Lewis.
Yeah, if you get a transcendent defense, Brad Johnson when he had the 2002 Bucks. If you get something like that, yes, absolutely. But Skip, when you really look at it, how many Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or the Benz and the Drew Breeses are there? Now, we get guys that they'll jump in and then they'll jump back out. But the two big dogs, they stay there. And then you got Ben and you got Drew Brees, and they're, every once in a while, Ben for like 8-9 games, he'll stay there, and then he play a game like Jacksonville, and then he like moonwalk way back. But for the most part, those guys are right there. But those are transcendent players, Skip.
Well, there's still a chance that Kirk Cousins ends up with the 49ers. There's teams who are going to need a quarterback next year.
Jacksonville.
New York, Denver.
We ain't got that money. I can't give them none of the money that they paid me over the years. I can't give any of that back, Skip.
It could just be operating that 0-8 is bleak, and that they wanted to
they don't want to
get a couple dubs on the
So
schedule.
bottom line, everybody better get used to Tom Brady until he's 45.
No, that's not
That's what's happening.
No, it's not happening.
Better get used to it.
Skip, I hope you're right. I hope Coach Belichick didn't put all his eggs in one basket. But that is a 40-year-old body. He's on pace to get sacked more than he has at any point in time in his career.
He's shattering the mold.
Okay. I just hope he doesn't shatter in the process.
He's doing this to Father Time.
Okay, you think he's getting the Heisman pose?
No mercy.
The Seahawks made a big move yesterday, trading for former Texans offensive tackle Duane Brown. Seattle is sending cornerback Jeremy Lane and future picks to Houston. Brown was holding out until last week, but returned to play on Sunday and was a part of the Texans group that protested before the game after owner Bob McNair's controversial comments. Brown has publicly called out McNair leading up to yesterday's trade. Shannon, what was your reaction to the trade?
I love this trade for Seattle, Skip. Seattle just became a major, major power broker in the NFC. I think this catapulted them in front of Philly because Philly lost Jason Peters, who was the premier left tackle in football, or one of, whether you like him, obviously Joe Thomas is gone, Tyron Smith. But they've become a major player. Russell Wilson was the most in pressures, third most in pressure, third most in hits. That's going to drastically decrease with the addition. This is exactly what Seattle needed, but I find the timing of this very, very interesting. Teams are not trading Pro Bowl left tackle, Skip, in the middle of a season for a reserve cornerback and picks. That's not happening. Now, they could have traded him. They knew he was unhappy with the contract this offseason. So they could have traded him this offseason. They could have traded him in training camp. They could have traded him week 1, week 2. But they traded him this week after Mr. McNair made his comments. The most outspoken Texans player has been one Duane Brown. That's not a coincidence. Too many coincidences is a happening. This happened because he spoke out, because he in the telephone interview, he went back to something that he says, now that Mr. McNair said that, I got to go back to something that he said in 2008 when President Obama was elected. He said, I know a lot of you are happy, but it's not the outcome that I wanted. He said that. He's been very outspoken. So now a Pro Bowl left tackle comes back a week and you trade him when you could have traded him in the offseason and possibly gotten more for him. Who you know trade left tackle, Skip? What team you know trade a I've only known one. And he played on my team. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame now. That was Gary Zimmerman. Gary Zimmerman, and the only reason they tried to get Zim to come back, but the general manager told Zim he was done. And Zim told him, I'll never play for you. You can't offer me enough money. So they traded him. But this doesn't happen. Pro Bowl left tackles that coming up on the market, Skip, you know that.
I agree with your first point about Seattle. It's a huge, great move for them. It will bolster the locker room. Everybody will be put a little pep in your step because you got a real live left tackle who has proven this at the highest level after you lost the potential left tackle that you're going to play Fant back in the preseason. And it's just a great move for a team that you did pick. I've got to give you credit here. You picked this team to win it all, and I think it just bolstered your shot at winning it all. And I agree with you. At this moment, right here, right now, they look like the best team in the NFC. Could change. We still have a lot of football left to play. I'm not sure I'm with your conclusion that he was traded because of what he said last week, only because you could be right, but I read rumors and speculation that he was going to be traded in August, and then he was holding out. And one of the
They trade holdouts.
the potential destinations was Seattle,
Right.
that I read about back in August. So I think this was operating. So now this leads to a question that I cannot answer. Duane Brown made the Pro Bowl in 2012, 13, and 14. He did not make it in 15, and he did not make it in 16. He's now 32, 10th year. Do they think he's losing a little edge? Is that what happened here? Do they think he's not going to be worth what Seattle's going to have to pay him? He's in the 6th year of a 7th year deal, but he was holding out because he was scheduled to make 9.6, and most of the big time left tackles make 13-ish. They're on that 13 range.
I don't think it's so much the 9.6 is that he wanted more upfront money. He wanted, so they might be at 13, but they done got 30+ million guaranteed. And so he wanted, I'm sure you give me 20 million and you want to play, I'll play the next 2 years at say 25 million. You give me 20 million to sign. I'll play the next 2 years at 2.5 million because that's, 12, little over 12. I can live with that. Skip, this guy is still a preeminent left tackle.
I think so. I don't know it for a fact because I don't watch that position closely enough, but I'll go with you. It feels good to me, and it feels like Seattle stole him, even though I have respect for Jeremy Lane, and they threw in a 2 and a 5, not a small price.
They don't get the 5. They don't get the 5 until the 2 until 2019.
2019.
But for a back now, if you're gonna trade a left tackle, you're gonna get Pat Peterson, or you're gonna get Talib, or Richard Sherman, or Chris Harris Jr. Okay. Oh wow. Okay, I like that. But for a backup corner and a 5th round pick. So even if he's not still that top 2 or 3 left tackles, he's still a top 6 or 7 left tackle in all of football, considering there are 32 of them. So
You would think so.
Seattle became a major power broker with this move, Skip.
I agree. So now I have watched Jacksonville acquire Marcel Darius. They are ranked 1st in points allowed. Their defense is completely, utterly legit.
Yes.
I don't know about their offense, because I'm not sure about the quarterback, but the defense is loaded with talent and just added a cornerstone defensive tackle, right?
Yep.
And then I watched Seattle acquire Duane Brown, huge, great move, and now we hear that Philly has acquired Jay Ajayi, and it's just a good move for them. It makes them a little bit, if not a lot better, because they lost Darren Sproles.
Right.
So I ask, Jerry, where are you now? What are you doing?
Jerry says he gets Skip.
He's trying to add firepower. Really?
Well, he's trying to. I see Seattle adding that 5.
Yep.
I see Philly adding that 5. got something for y'all too in 2 weeks.
Yep. I see Jerry fiddling while Rome burns, or at least the defense gets burned and burned and burned week after week. I know it's coming together slowly but surely, but a little too slowly for my taste. So they add nobody.
You better
They're
hurry
all
up.
kids. They're the second youngest team in pro football, and they're a good team, and they have a chance to be a really good team. But it always helps at trade deadline. I don't know how you felt in the locker room, but when you add somebody of note, everybody kind of perks up like, oh.
We added Gary Zimmerman.
Yeah,
So
that'll work.
Obviously, John Elway was doing cartwheels.
Yeah.
You talk about one of the premier left tackles in all of football.
But that's when you sit back and you say, my owner, who signed off on this, and my GM, they actually are serious about, we're going to go for this. We're going to try to win, right?
I think the thing is, Skip, that the Cowboys, because you look at it, they got to keep these young players, and they got to hope they get better. Because guess what? Dak Prescott, that'll balloon payment coming on him. So what? Now you got to realize he was a fourth-round pick.
But you told me he's overrated.
No,
so,
it doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah.
It only matters what they think.
Well, in your view, they'll just cut bait when his
Stop.
rookie
See,
contract
you-
is up. Well, that's what you said.
Skip,
You said he's
see,
a one-hit wonder.
I did not-
Aberration flash in the pan.
I did not-
You have suggested it again.
I didn't
and again.
suggest anything.
Yes, you did.
No, I suggested that Zeke Elliott is the engine that makes this car go.
So you are also strongly suggesting that Dak Prescott is about to get exposed without the bell cow. Am I not right about
No,
this?
Skip.
6 games exposed.
No, I said.
You said he's either going to be in the MVP conversation or he's going to be in the toilet. Basically,
No, that no, I
right?
didn't.
Yeah, you did.
No,
Am
I
I
said
right?
either, I said either Dak Prescott is going to be heavily involved in the MVP conversation, or we're still going to have the questions. How good is Dak really? That's what I said. Now you try to take business. Skip, why you do that?
I don't know. Maybe Dak's on the trade block today.
must
I don't
be-
know. Maybe they're saying Shannon's got to be right about this.
Are you working for the presidential campaign? Are you still working for him? Because you know you parse your words.
No.
I said
I
what
just
I
work for me.
Are you sure?
I work against you, and I got you on your heels again.
Oh, you working against me, huh?
Yeah.
Skip. But you trying to say something that I didn't say. I didn't say Dak was a flash in the pan.
You strongly suggested, you said, he's a product of 21. Did you not say that?
I said I believe that the engine of the Dallas Cowboys offense is Ezekiel Elliott. I also said we get an opportunity. Dak gets an opportunity. Either he'll be heavily involved in the MVP conversation, or the questions will. You make it seem like I'm the only one that got questions. You said it makes you upset that he doesn't get more credit.
He doesn't. I don't.
Okay, then so-
maybe others have questions. I agree with you. I don't get it. He changed the whole face of the franchise when he became the face of the franchise. He turned them from losers into winners. He's the guy who makes all the key plays, not 21.
Zeke.
21 goes along for the ride. Right now, it's possible Zeke will be watching.
And Dak don't jump in no a Salvation Army kettle. He don't be doing
No jumping of the quarterbacks in the kettle.
Yeah, see?
No,
See, so I got to go with you.
No mercy.
Lonzo Ball and the Lakers have lost their last 2 games, which dropped to 2-4 this season. Lonzo has only scored 14 points with 9 turnovers in those last 2 losses. Yesterday, Lonzo gave credit to his dad and LeBron for dealing with losses. Let's take a listen.
You've always been someone that sort of takes the blame on yourself from a young age and wants to have that accountability.
Yeah, that's how I was brought up, so I'm not gonna change.
Do you feel like the team sort of reacts well to that because they know that you're taking that responsibility, they know you're the leader, and it's not all falling on their shoulders?
Right. It's a team game. We all play for each other, so obviously we win and lose as a team, but I like to take the blame when we lose.
Where did you learn that philosophy?
That's just what my dad taught me.
You remember early on, were you a 6-year-old?
Yeah, when I started at 6. Yeah, he's been coaching me the same way my whole life.
Was there a player that you grew up watching that you saw that in, you saw that quality in that they wanted?
Well, my favorite player growing up was LeBron, and he still plays the same way to this day. He always takes it.
We're joined by FS1 NBA analyst Chris Broussard. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
That was a strange answer.
There's no strange answer.
it was.
You enjoy the
No
word.
coincidence. You get first shot at this.
Okay, you go first. No,
want me to go
seriously, I don't care.
What was your
go-
reaction to Lonzo?
You're gonna be surprised. LeVar, I totally believe. We saw LeVar this summer video of him jumping on LaMelo in front of his teammates. My dad was like that. A lot of, very critical of me when the team lost. And I do believe that Lonzo, for all the praise that LeVar gives on him or to him, I do think he was raised to think if you win, you played well. If you lose, you didn't. Because even after Phoenix, when he had that huge game, 29 points, 10 assists, whatever he had, he said they won. That's the most important thing. LeBron, as much as I love him,
thank you.
The narrative has never been he takes the blame.
Never.
Now, he'll admit when he's played not well. I talked to him about Dallas. He told me he didn't play well. He owned it. But Cleveland, the first time he left, didn't. Whenever you leave, you know, it's the implication you need a better team. He was right, but the implication. And so that's never been the narrative. We can go to top-heavy quote from last.
Thank you. Top-heavy is you know what.
Yeah. So, and even when you leave it out there all year that I might leave and it's going to be to win a championship, it's not taking the blame. So he's not the only one. That's a habit now with a lot of players. Paul George, you know, the implication I didn't have enough help. Kevin Durant, the implication I didn't have enough help in OKC. Even Kobe, when he was going to leave the Lakers, you know, he wanted to be traded. But to say that LeBron, the defining narrative of his career has been, or a defining narrative, that he always took the blame, no.
That was big from Chris Broussard.
That's just not.
Well, that wasn't big. Come
on.
Hey,
you know that's true.
This is LeBron's biographer. Well, you and Windhorse, close, right?
Stop hating this kid. Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I want to hear what you say.
First of all, I want to say what I love the most about Lonzo Ball is his character, because I'm not sure how he got the character. I'm not sure he was raised the exact right way, but I love his humility. I love his unselfishness. And there are times I wish he had a bigger dose of his father in him, because he's not vocal enough. He's not assertive enough. He's not aggressive enough. He's a little too timid. He's a little too passive, neither of which we ever associate with his father, right? So now to these quotes. I was amused by both, because I'm not sure that I have heard LeVar do much of anything but alibi for Lonzo when he plays poorly. And it started with the De'Aaron Fox game in the Sweet 16 at Memphis, remember when they lost? And he got torched by De'Aaron Fox. He just couldn't stay in front of him. And afterward, LeVar made the point that, he pulled his hamstring. He didn't look like he pulled any hamstring. Did you see him flinch or drag his leg? Or I didn't see any of that. I'm sorry, as much as the biggest fan as I am of Lonzo, I'm not going to give him that excuse. I will give him the mom excuse, because just before that game, she had suffered her stroke, and they did not want that out there at that point.
Right.
Now, I think most people know that she suffered a
really bad,
big time
debilitating.
Woo. And neither the father or the other two sons were able to go to Memphis when they had always been at big games for Lonzo, and they were not there. So am I going to give him a little bit of a break for that one, a little bit of a pass? Yes, I am. But it feels like to me that LeVar has too often just covered for Lonzo. Like even after the games they lost at Staples, they should have won those two early games at Staples, the Toronto and the New Orleans games. And he covers for him. And again, he's just 19. He just turned 20. But now we get to LeBron. And to me, that came off as kind of a sweetly naive quote, because Lonzo grew up loving LeBron James, so he's going to see no evil. You know, he's just going to see the best. And there's a whole lot of good about LeBron James. And all he sees is the positive. Well, there's a whole lot of good.
Good.
And a lot of the passing, the unselfishness that LeBron can have, because he's such a great passer. I always say he's the best passer in basketball. Now he's playing the point. Doesn't seem to be working on defense, but we'll talk about that at another date. But the point is that it was kind of a kid vision of my idol growing up. I learned from my idol. Well, I'm not sure you learned that part from your idol, and I'm not sure you learned that part from your dad, but sometimes kids just grow up the right way, and just in and of themselves, they kind of learn to do the right thing.
I think his dad takes the approach of maybe what you'd ask from a good teammate. In public, always praise, always cover for you. But in private, I bet you he rides him. Because again, we've seen the video of him riding LaMelo, his youngest son. So I'm sure
there's a lot to ride there too.
LeVar or Lonzo the same.
You mean to tell me not shooting 70 times a game?
like from half court? Maybe you could get just a little inside half court?
That's asking too much to cut. The coach asked me to cut it down to 50. You got to go. My son ain't getting homeschooled. For me, I think this is one thing that LeVar should be given credit for. Because we criticize LeVar a lot of times for always being in front of the cameras. And it's not his fault. LeVar doesn't own a TV station or radio station. We keep sticking the mic in front of him and rolling the camera, so he keeps saying this. But it just goes to show you what he thinks of his dad. His dad is a big influence in his life. And that's what you should do. As a great player, and I wasn't the player that LeBron was, but there have been times that reporters like, well, Shannon, you had a good game, but we lost. I say, well, I didn't have a good enough game. Because if I'd have played better, maybe we won. And that's
but it's hard for you at that position in that sport to have that much impact. LeBron can have huge impact on every.
But I do believe that LeBron takes a lot of the even when he plays well, because even though he had a triple-double in the finals, that still wasn't well enough for Skip. That still wasn't.
But LeBron seemed like relieved and content with his triple-double after Game 5. Didn't they lose in 5? Yeah, after Game 5, he walked off the floor with that air of, I was pretty good.
But here's the thing, though, Skip. I mean, maybe that's what he showed in public, but I'm sure he had a moment when he was alone that he's. Man.
But no doubt. But do you think publicly? And again, I've talked to him about the Dallas series, and he said, "Look,
I don't remember like big public quotes."
I don't think publicly he's come out and said, "Look, it's on me." No. And not that you have to, because there's an element of that can be looked at as belittling to your teammats. If it's always you, like, you know, so.
Yeah, I didn't play well. Why didn't they carry me like I've done for them so many times before?
Exactly. So, but that's not been a part. That's clearly, apparently, going to be a part of Lonzo's career.
Where LeBron will take blame is from on any given regular season night. If he turns it over 6, 7, 8 times, he will say, I sucked after the game.
But you know what that is? Mainly, that's the point guard. Because if you notice, quarterbacks do that a lot. When things don't go well, Tom Brady's the first to step up. His defense might have played terrible, but the first thing he hollered after they lost to the Kansas City is that we need to play better and we need to score more points. So that comes from the position that has the ball the majority of time in their hand. Quarterbacks normally take ownership when the team plays bad, even if they throw for 500 yards, but they lose. They're like, well, I should have threw for 550. I shouldn't have turned it over. Or I shouldn't have had this bad play here. And point guards, Magic Johnson and Isaiah, all the all-time great point guards, because they dominate the ball so much. But I do believe LeBron take ownership. I mean, like you said, when you talk about the Dallas series, he's like, it's on me. I didn't play well. I didn't play well, and I think he's put the onus to make sure. Now, he's lost 4 more times since then, but he's made sure that he didn't play like he played in Dallas again.
Not. Well, that was the all-time epic.
It wasn't no all-time.
It was too.
It happened.
There's been other
ones. I've never seen it
happen. Magic.
Oh, yeah. But it wasn't like that. It wasn't
like
that. He missed a late shot, but he didn't play
Magic in '84, he dribbled out the shot.
He dribbled out the shot clock.
He dribbled out the clock.
I'm saying he screwed up at the end of the game, but he didn't have an epic failure over, what were they up, 2 games to 1?
So they lost in
3 straight games.
Yeah, those last 3.
And he just shrank and disappeared.
Well, they started celebrating in game 1 because they was up like 14-16 in game 1 and got cocky. And got cocky. Skip. I know. Don't let old Chris Broussard fool you. No. He Creole. He got one of them dolls. Every now and then he'll stick it. Make sure LeBron don't do what he's supposed to. That's why LeBron.
Look, I'm a LeBron. What you talking about?
No, I'm a LeBron.
I defend LeBron. I like Lonzo. You see things that aren't there when you love a player so much.
Okay. Well, I love Lonzo. Early on, and again, he just turned 20 years of age, but I have big issues so far. I know it's really early, but I got 2 issues. He cannot shoot the ball at Staples, but he goes away, and he went to Phoenix, and he went to Utah, and he shot the ball very well. He made 3-point shots. So that disturbs me, and what disturbs me even more is they had chances to win the New Orleans game and win the Toronto game, and the second unit got them back in position. Then he comes in to close the deal and just goes passive.
Well,
I don't get it.
I thought Luke Walton, because you ride the hot hand. If the second team got you back in it and they're playing well, leave him there.
He's the second pick in the draft, and at some point you just got to say, get us home.
You remember Ty Lue in Indiana? Yeah. He left Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving on the bench, and LeBron in the second unit closed the game. Happened again in Game 5 against Toronto. If they got the hot hand going, you ride him, Skip.
But I didn't see this in Summer League. And you say it was just Summer League, but he just attacked like crazy. And everything was push, push, push. I'm going to throw it full court. I'm going to get the ball up court. I'm going to make it happen. And I don't often see him make it happen so far.
Skip.
Except for the game at Phoenix. He made it happen.
I agree. He's got to be more
A
aggressive.
couple of those guys in the summer league dropped packages off at my house yesterday. To make a long story short, they're not in the NBA.
Right, but he has to find that comfort level that he had in summer league in the NBA, or it's not going to work.
Where he need.
But he's so young.
Well, he need to play with those guys that
I
were
got
playing
it.
in the summer league.
I got it.
Yeah, he's
got it.
still.
I think he'll be okay.
You do?
He'll be all right.
You do realize like Boogie Cousins and Anthony Davis didn't play in summer league, right? And Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, they weren't in the summer league, right?
Yeah, but a lot of decent players did play in
Skip.
Summer League.
When they were rookies.
No mercy.
Thanks for listening to the Undisputed Podcast. I'm Joy Taylor. We're back at the same time tomorrow morning, 9:30 Eastern. We'll see you then.
Fox Sports 1 of 1.